I'm Cheryl, and I teach the computer classes at the main branch of the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. And today I'm going to be showing you how to do a mail merge in Microsoft Word. Now, a mail merge is if you have a mailing list and you want to print envelopes or labels to send out a mailing. It's very easy to do. You just need, first of all, Microsoft Word. It's also helpful if you have Microsoft Excel because you keep your mailing list in Microsoft Excel. Now, if you don't have Excel, you can keep your mailing list in a table in a Microsoft Word document, but that's not as flexible as Excel is. Now, when you do your mailing list, you will need to have your columns labeled neatly. I suggest name, street or address 1, city, state, and zip. You need to have these clearly labeled so that Microsoft Word can recognize which columns it should put in which order on your labels. So I have just typed up a list of different names, fake addresses, and zip codes all around the metropolitan area. So I'm done with that. I don't need to see this anymore. It does not have to be open for the mail merge to work. It just has to be saved on your computer. Alright, so you will open Microsoft Word, start a new document, and you have a tab at the top called Mailings. They really do make it very easy for you to do this. Your first two options are envelopes and labels. This is not what you want to use when you have a bunch of different names and addresses. These buttons, envelopes and labels, are if you want to print the same thing on multiple envelopes or labels. For instance, if you're doing a return address label and you want one address printed on a whole sheet of labels, that's what you would use those for. For what we're doing today, sending out mailings to multiple addresses and people, you will do this one where it says Start Mail Merge. Then it's going to ask you what you are sending. Today we're going to be doing labels. Now, the first thing you're going to do when it comes up is you're going to have to tell it what kind of labels you have. Now, if you have bought a brand name vendor label, you will see a list of vendors here. The most common one is Avery, and there are a couple of different ones. Avery A4, A5 is used in the UK. Avery US letter is our standard 8.5 by 11 paper. And they are organized by the number on the Avery label. My labels are 5260, and that's the one I would choose. Now, if you are using an off-brand label, a generic, frequently it will say on the package which Avery number it corresponds to. If it does not, you will have to scroll down. If you can find one that matches the dimensions over here, that matches the dimensions of what you have, you can use it, or you can create a new label size in this dialog box here. So I'm just going to use 5260, and when I've got that selected, I click OK. Now, you can't see it do anything, but believe me, it has created labels. If I select all this stuff, you will see these labels. Now, I have my Microsoft Word set up with a default of single spaced with no space in between the lines. The newest versions of Microsoft Word has a tendency to put a space in between the lines and space them far apart. This is not a big deal for something like a letter, but if you have a very small space like labels, you may find that your labels are too small. And if you want to reduce the size in between the lines, that is found over on the Home tab, and you would select everything. So over here you'll do a select all, and how you change the spacing is normally here. Normally you would do 1 for single spacing, but that doesn't get rid of the tiny little spaces in between the lines that it puts. You would actually need to do this tiny little thing here. Make sure these boxes say 0 and this says single. And that will help you get rid of all of those things. Okay, back to our mailings tab. Now that we've got the page set up with our label size properly done, we have to tell the computer where the mailing list is, and that is under Select Recipients. Now, it gives you the option to type up a brand new list, or use an existing list, or select it from your Outlook contacts. We're going to use an existing list, that mailing list that we've typed up that I showed you earlier. And it is on my computer. Right here. So I would find it, select it, and click open. Now if it has multiple sheets, it will ask you which sheet it's on. Mine's on the first one. Also, you will see this that says first row of data contains column headers. If that is checked, that means you have column headings. If not, it will know that the first row is a person. But ours does contain column headings, and this makes it much easier for it to understand. So I'm just going to click OK. Okay, so now you will see it has updated all of our labels except for the first one with the words next record in this bracket. That's the signal to the computer to go to the next person on the mailing list. Back up here as we're going across, the next one is Edit Recipient List. This is in case you have other people on the mailing list that you're not sending items to. So this lets you keep a mailing list for multiple purposes and only go in and select certain people from your list for this mailing. You would just use the check marks here to check who you want to send it to, or take the check mark off if you don't want to send that person this particular mailing. Now we have to tell it what we want to put on the label. And we have a button up here that says address block. These are mailing labels. We're wanting to put the address in there. Don't worry, it will also put the name with it. Now, it's asking, how do you want this formatted? Okay. How you want this formatted is a matter of personal preference. If you click on one, it will take the first person in the list and show you what they're going to be looking like. So go through and find how you like it done. We want to make sure this is checked, insert postal address. and format address according to the destination country or region. This is important if you're doing international mailings, because in the US we put our zip code last. In other countries, they may put their zip code before the state, or they may not even have states, and then you'll put the country will be last. So it's all a matter of if you're sending out international mailings. This doesn't really matter if all of your mailing is going to be in the US. Now, if you see a problem here and it's putting something in the wrong spot, or it's missing some of the information, it's possibly because it didn't recognize your column heading. In which case, you would click this button that says Match Fields, and you would tell it which columns to use for, like, the address, and which column to use for such and such. You would have to do this if you did not put good column headings, or if you did not put any column headings at all. You would need to use this button to tell it which ones to use where. As it is, I like the way it's done right now, so I'm just going to click OK. We've got the address on the first label. We want to get the address on all the labels, so there's a button right up here that says Update Labels. That will put the address on each label. So now what it is, it will put the first address here, go to the next record, put the address, go to the next record, put the address, and so on and so on. Now if you want to see what this looks like, you can click Preview Results, and you will see how your labels look. Okay. If you're ready to print, you would just click Finish and Merge. Edit individual documents will let you change one or two items, but not the whole, not every one. We're just going to do print. You're going to tell it which ones you want to print, all of them. Click OK. And then you would tell it which printer to use, etc. Now, there is one thing you should know about printing with labels or printing on envelopes. You need to tell it. You need to tell the printer when you're going to be using labels or envelopes. And the reason is because if you send a sheet of labels too fast through certain printers, the labels can lift up and get stuck inside the printer. So it will know to slow down the speed of the label sheet going through the printer so that it doesn't do that. If you're talking about envelopes, it's very important on especially laser printers to tell it you're doing envelopes, because laser printers use heat set ink, and it sets the powdered toner with heat. If the heat is turned up too high, it can melt the adhesive on your envelope flaps and seal your envelopes shut. So if you tell the printer that you are putting envelopes through it, then it will know to turn down the heat and slow it down so that it can set the toner without sealing the envelopes shut. And to do that, you choose your printer and choose Properties. Somewhere there should be a paper type. From plain paper, you want to change this. If you're doing labels, change it to label. If you're doing envelopes, change it to envelope. And do OK. Then you would go ahead and click OK to print. Now I don't need to print this. The process for doing envelopes is very similar. Let me get a new document. go back to the mailings and start the mail merge again. But this time, instead of choosing labels, I will choose envelopes. Then I have to tell it what size of envelope. Size 10 is a standard long envelope in America. Size 9 would be the short envelopes. And under printing options, it should automatically detect how your printer likes to have their envelopes set. However, you should always, when you're going to print, you should always print one first. That way you can check the settings, and if they're wrong, you can come back to this spot and change where you position it in the in tray. Alright, now once we've chosen envelopes and we've chosen this, we have two areas that we can print on. You will see the cursor in the top left hand corner. That's where you would go ahead and type your address, your return address. Since this is coming from the library, I'll put the return address as the library. And down here, where you would normally put the address, that's where we want to print the address to it. So I would click down there, and you will see this little dotted line box come up, and now I have a blinking cursor. From here, you simply repeat the steps that you used for the labels. So I've got this set up. Now I need to put the address in there. I need to tell it where to get the addresses from, and that's up under Select Recipients. Use my existing list. Okay. If I wanted to edit who on the list gets one, I would click this. Otherwise, I'll just click Address Block. I go through the same steps I did before. And now I just preview the results. If you want to preview all of them, you can click through with this little arrow one by one to make sure they're all there. And then I would just click Finish and Merge, Print Documents. I'm going to print all of them. And remember to go to Properties and change your paper type to envelope so that it will know to turn down the heat. Once you get used to this process, it's very simple. So what you'll do again is just start with Mail Merge, choose what you're going to be printing, and then just follow toward the right and click the buttons as you need them until you hit the far right and you finish and merge and print. It really is a simple process once you get the hang of it, and you'll be able to do mass mailings very quickly and easily. Thanks for watching our video today. Once again, this is from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library, and we'll see you next time.